listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
Hello and welcome to In the Lab with Jennifer and Jill.
Hi.
And our special guest, Nikka T.
Yay.
Nick Tannum.
Greetings. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. What would you like us to call you? Nick, Select Nikka? What
Nick,
do you like?
Nick or Nikka T is fine.
Nikka T.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Nick Tannum owns Essential Extracts, solventless wax, and we are going to talk to him about how he makes such great solventless wax. Right, Jill?
Yes.
Yes,
I'm
we
very
are.
excited to learn.
Well, he can't give away too many secrets, but we've had a lot of shows talking about a whole bunch of different extractions, and every show really up until now talked about solvents. And Nick creates some amazing, what we don't want to call water hash or bubble
Award-winning.
hash. Award-winning, that's
Yes.
right, I forgot.
Well, we can call it water hash. I consider
Okay.
it a form of water hash. I personally have just been trying to stay away from the terminology bubble hash, only because, over the last 20 years or so, bubble hash has kind of taken a second seat to BHO, and it's kind of gotten a bad rep for being black and mildewy smelling and that type of thing. So we've really just been kind of trying to get away from those stereotypes. Thus, we've been marketing our specific form of water hash as solventless hash and or solventless wax in the highest form.
Do you know where the term bubble hash
Yeah, I was
originated?
just going to ask that.
Well, I believe, and this, may just be, what I've heard, but I believe that Bubble Man originated the term bubble hash, really for, his process and his product, using the bubble bags to create the bubble hash. And then, at the same time, there was Mila creating her bags, which were the isolator bags or the pollinator bags. And so her product was called Isolator,
Wow.
and that product was extremely popular in Europe and Amsterdam. And water hash is still known as Isolator in a lot of the shops you check out in Amsterdam.
Interesting. I've never even heard that
And that's
term.
kind of why I, devised solventless. I've got my own little line of bags, my own little bit of a process that is a little bit different than Mila's and that of Mark's Bubble Man's. And thus, calling our product solventless rather than bubble hash or Isolator.
What about butter? Now, in Canada, I know that they have butter hash, and that's the Butter King.
Butter
DD,
King, yeah.
right?
And, that was just one of the, I think, first methods of solvent extraction to really start popping up in a lot of the forums. And thus the name Butter King came up because he was really one of the first people to create butter. What people are calling, butter, solvent butter today, or wax, is a very similar form compared to something like shatter. But I believe the Butter King is actually still using alcohol or ISO or some type of washing method as well. So it's a little bit different than what a lot of the people are doing here with blasting of butane.
Yeah, what I tried in Canada, and this was probably 5 years ago in the Canadian dispensaries called butter. It had a very chemical taste to it, but it was the first time I had ever really seen that. And even owning a dispensary 4 years ago, all we had in the beginning was water hash. And then the waxes started coming, and then shatter's just kind of a recent development too. So, can you tell us a little bit about, you've been doing this for a very long time, like the evolution that you've seen in Colorado and how dispensaries have changed that or evolved your processes or the demands that you're seeing?
Well, let's back up first. Let's talk about your start and how you got in the industry and work up to that.
Okay. I guess I started, I grew up in Northern California. I grew up in a very cannabis-friendly environment. From the age of 12, 13 years old, I was around it. And it was pretty normal to be around it in Northern California. My parents weren't necessarily pushing it on me, but, my grandparents, my father, they all worked at Tannum's Family Nursery. I grew up, watering the roses, so I've always just kind of been around plants in general. Northern California is just a real lush environment for growing anything in reality. And I think, that's kind of just pushed me further and further, into working with farms up in Northern California, trimming in Humboldt and Mendocino, and then starting to realize that all this trim was being thrown away in Northern California because it was such a large amount. And in reality, a lot of their money was coming from the buds. And then some people were making, poor quality bubble hash where I was trimming. And so I just really wanted to make a product that smelled more like the flower it was coming from. And I think that was like my main step into this industry, is being around it so much, but wanting to make something better. And so growing up in California, I sold cannabis for a living. And that was my passion. That's always kind of been my passion ever since I was, a teenager. And it's still my passion today, is to help people using the plant and using the extracts from the plant. And that really pushed me to start, making water hash myself and starting to hone in my individual process. And then really when I moved out here to Colorado 10 years or so ago, I started processing it more and more for, individual growers in Colorado. And then actually, about 8 years ago, or maybe longer now, I went and visited Mila in Amsterdam, and that pushed my process even further. She taught me a lot of oral tradition that hadn't been written down at all. And in reality, I think she just started writing down some of her process for the public about a year ago.
Let's talk about Mila real quick, back up, because we're all assuming people know who that is.
Yeah. Mila Jansen is who I mentioned earlier. She is the creator of the Pollinator Company, and she was the originator of the isolator bags, her method, and the isolator hash, basically. She's been a hero of mine for a decade, if not longer. Mila Jansen, big up Mila every single time. She's a powerful woman in our industry. She's actually coming out here for the 710 Cup to be a judge. I think they just released that recently. I hope
Wow,
I'm
that's
not
exciting.
releasing it before they do. But yeah, Mila will be out here very shortly in July.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it first.
No, I think they released it. But much love, Mila. She's... I love the woman. When she comes out here, I try and drive her around as much as I can. When I go out to Amsterdam, she, houses me. So she's like a second mother to me for sure.
So why did she start doing water hash? What was the motivation there? Do you know?
Well, I think in general, why everyone starts making water hash is because they're looking for a more concentrated form of cannabis, whereas you don't have to consume nearly as much as you would with the flower.
Okay.
You can get higher THC percentages. You can get, smaller doses, like I was saying. And, in reality, I think a lot of places like Europe and places like that started seeing a lot more influx of hash because of the import market. Hash is a lot easier to,
Right.
import or export, in reality compared to flowers. And I think that's really in reality where a lot of hash started coming into play, is because it was easier to move.
That makes sense.
And thus, we've seen it in our medical industry now, not only because, it's easier to move in smaller amounts, it can fit in someone's purse a lot easier than, a big jar of cannabis, but also because, we're hitting higher CBD numbers with the concentrates, we're hitting higher THC numbers, and so it really has a higher medicinal value.
Oh, a little off topic. Do you use a oil pen or a vaporizer pen or a hash pen? And if so, which one do you use?
I do every once in a while. My preferred method is a spliff. But, every once in a while when I do use a pen, I do like the Atmos Raw. Yeah. Only because in reality, it's been one of the most consistent things on the market. A lot of pens have come and gone. The Atmos has kind of still stayed here, number one. Number two, I really like the Atmos because I can vaporize flowers, I can vaporize hash, and I can vaporize oil or butter or shatter, any of the solvent or non-solvent items in the Atmos Raw. So in reality, Atmos Raw is really the only one that I push on my website. Plug.
No, I only ask because when you talk about portability, like as a mom, that's huge for me.
Or a patient that has to
or
have,
anyone
yeah.
who is out and about, to have something handy and ready in your purse, especially now with 64. Although I do not smoke and drive.
Yeah. Okay, so back to, you learned from Mila, and you kind of took your your own take on it. And then, so that was how long ago
That
here?
was like 8 years ago or
Wow.
so, and I've definitely interacted with Mila since and changed my process and honed in different things. Because, one of the things that Mila and I didn't go over, or didn't have time to go over, is processing things differently. We actually process different strains completely differently. So we'll run our Bubba Kush 100% differently than our Blue Dream, just for an example.
Because of the terpene count, or
Well,
why
more
do you
because
do
of
that?
the trichome structure. If you take a scope to your product before you process it, oftentimes you'll see that your Blue Dream has these long, narrow trichomes with these smaller heads that don't really have too much oil concentration in the heads, compared to if you scope the Bubba Kush, just for an example, especially the Pre-98, they have these really short, squat trichomes with a huge oily head, and oftentimes the Bubba Kush is even more amber. You can take the Blue Dream as long as you want, and it'll start producing, hermaphrodite, tendencies and things like that, but it won't fully turn amber, whereas the Bubba Kush will start to turn amber quicker. So there's just certain aspects there that, we process them differently. We have to be a little bit more gentle with the Blue Dream, because if we're more aggressive like we are with the Bubba Kush, we'll pull more than just the trichome off. We'll be pulling some plant matter with it.
Does that differ, though, when you're working with flower versus trim leaf, or do you only deal with flower, or how do you?
We work with both, and we change our process for compared to bud or comparing bud to trim. We definitely have a completely different process. We're a lot more gentle with the bud. The bud, we actually, there's different ways to process bud, but if we had it our way, we would actually be cutting the bud while it was still fresh to freeze it so we can open up more surface area, but with still being gentle with it. And then we'll actually use more agitation if we've broken up enough surface area. And then if we haven't, it just depends on really what we're trying to get out of it. If we're going for like just the headiest of the headiest quality, or if our patient or our client wants more of a quantity out of that bud, since they're giving us bud. Because oftentimes the problem with bud is when a client gives us bud is, if they give us 8 plants, sometimes retail, that 8 plants is worth $18,000 in their store, and they're giving it to us and only getting some, a certain amount in return, and they're really just coming to us because they want the best quality, on there. So,
Do you see that changing, though, with people learning what better quality is? Because it always has been the economics for a dispensary owner or a grower. Like, yeah, I want really good quality, but that differential between retail price and getting the hash, but the demand for hash is increasing. So are the prices increasing now too?
We've been battling that for since the very beginning, because I personally try and keep my prices low. And some dispensaries are trying to keep prices, at a certain spot. It's just a battle. Trying to keep, prices coming out of my lab low enough for the patients, and then also having the dispensary make enough money to cover their overhead. It's been all over the board. We get new patients new clients every day that call us and are like, yes, we want the best quality, available. And then, oftentimes we'll lose some patients to the solvent process, because our yield isn't as big as the solvent process, or they're not getting as much money from our product as the solvent process. So it really goes both ways. People that really care about quality are still coming to us every single day.
Now, you per se don't have your own grow, right? So how does it work if they wanted to get essential extracts in their store?
Yeah, basically, the main way for us to get essential extracts into a client's store right now is for that client to give us the trim. And we can give you 100% of your product back after we process the trim. We, charge a per gram rate basically right now. I wish we had enough to wholesale, but most 95% of my clients right now are taking 100% of the product back, which leaves us really, with not enough to wholesale right now, because the product is just flying off the shelves.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
It is. And then how does it go? Because I know that you're inside Pink House. So do they get first with what they give you, or how does that all work?
I don't want to fully go into too much of the, inside stuff with that type of thing. But Pink House is my home.
Right.
So, Pink House definitely has some advantages to, a lot of other centers being my home. Yeah.
Okay. And then people would just call up like any other and just place an order, but they have to have trim. There's no way you can.
Yeah, we just don't have the wholesale available right now, so we don't have, wholesale options
Okay.
for ordering. But we can definitely put product into your shop, by processing your own material. And that's nice too, because you know that everything that's going to be sold on your shelf is coming from your own personal garden.
Yeah. Which
And
is
you
great.
can do package deals, which is always great.
And we'll be back in just a second. Blue Sage Microbes unveils the ultimate in superior soil, Ideal Soil, a 16-quart bag of the best growing soil ever engineered. Superior plant health and vitality is a direct result of the structure and chemistry of your soil. How good is your growing soil? Is your growing soil really balanced? How do you know? Well, Blue Sage Microbes has a newly designed growing soil that is the most advanced growing medium ever offered for cannabis cultivation. This is the only brand in the marketplace that provides growers with an ideal soil structure designed to work specifically with their cultivation systems. You will have your best grow results ever. Call now for a special introductory offer, 888-959-8551, or log on to bluesagemicrobes.com and experience a new level in growing. That's 888-959-8551.
Call Canisher at 1-800-420-5757 for all your insurance needs. Canisher understands the risks you face each day, and we are there to protect your business and your investment. Since 2010, Canisher has been serving the cannabis industry nationwide. Call Canisher at 1-800-420-5757 or visit us on the web at canisher.com to learn more about our insurance and risk management services. Proud member of the NCIA.
The National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
All right, and we're back. So my question was, you are so passionate about plants and stuff. I assume that you like to grow yourself, and you wish you could have your own grow, huh? Instead of having other people's grow?
It's definitely an eventual goal. I would love to grow my own, to extract my own, and or have, some of my best friends, grow for me for the extraction process. But yeah, it's a definite eventual goal, because we're getting to a point where there's just not enough trim in the state of Colorado. And so in reality, I think we're going to need to grow our own for our own process, strictly for solventless.
For sure. And I mean, it's scary to even think about anybody that's doing anything without a grow right now. I mean, you're at such the mercy, whereas, like you said before, people couldn't give away their trim, and now you can't get trim.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can't get trim right now. If I could buy trim, I would buy it right now. And if there is actually trim being available for sale, it's generally way lower quality than I want and
Right.
way overpriced, because there is no trim. I've seen pounds for $500 of trim, which to me, growing up in Northern California, is ridiculous. I've never seen that type
I
of
remember
price.
when it was $125 to
Yeah,
$2
that's what I'm
at the
used
tops.
to. So
$2 is, you had larf bud in there.
I still tell people I won't pay more than $250 a pound. I just
well,
doesn't work for our process.
Okay, so let's say I'm Joe Schmo and I bring you in some trim and it's horrible. Do you set expectation there and go,
Well, in our proposal, we really outline exactly what we need to see in the starting material in order to process it. So we really outline everything in there. So a client won't bring me something that I'm not happy with, unless
Okay.
they really have a conversation beforehand, like, hey, this one client has, no trim available for me except for 20 pounds of power trim. If I can do something with the machine trim, I'm welcome to it, that type of option. And so sometimes we'll take something that we wouldn't normally run, like machine trim, and we'll run a pound of it just as like a testing procedure. And, sometimes it actually turns out proper enough for us to feel comfortable putting it on their shelf.
Yeah.
For our process. But most of the time our proposal really outlines that we won't accept any trim that has any bug problems, that has any mold or mildew problems. We won't accept any fan leaf. We only want close trim, Preferably we really, want fresh frozen trim. So trimmed off the plant fresh, put into a freezer immediately, and then picked up by us or dropped off by them.
I remember back when I first met you and I was trying to do that article, which never came about. She like disappeared, the cookbook. Remember that?
I thought it came out.
No, it never did. She totally disappeared.
Okay.
That's
And
so
you were talking
unusual
about
in this
fresh
industry.
frozen, and I was like, what is that? Like, I had no clue. I was so green.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess if I didn't explain it already, there's two ways to manicure a plant after it's done growing. There's the dry method and there's the fresh method. There's some people that will hang their plants for 5 to 7 days and, big leaf it and then hang them and then trim off all the close leaf, which would basically mean that they're trimming the plant while it's already dry. And so we consider that dry trim. And then there's the other, field of thought that you should be trimming the plant while it's fresh, so you trim your big leaves off and then you trim all of your close leaves while it's still fresh, and then you hang your buds or set them in, a tray to dry, basically. And we love that method, just for our extraction purposes. We love the method where they're trimming it while the plant is still fresh. They put all that close trim or any larf material, any of the small buds into the freezer, and then it's picked up by us and processed. And we can really retain a lot more of the terpenoids. We can retain a lot more of the translucent color. And we can really just retain a lot more consistency with the fresh frozen material because those trichomes aren't agitated as much as the dry material. What happens with the dry material is it's handled more, it's more brittle once it's dry, and more trichomes fall off.
That makes sense.
And or break.
So the terpenes, let's talk about that. Because I know that is, I mean, your solventless wax, it just smells amazing. And I've never smelled water hash that ever even comes close to that. And I know that a lot of people do BHO for the same, but I still think it just smells fresher, I guess, because there's no chemicals. But did you always, obviously you discovered that, the solventless brings the terpenes over. CO2 is that's why a lot of people don't like CO2 is because it's like completely, it's not a good terpene profile. So how do you, is it just the process that preserves the terpenes or?
Yeah, definitely. And there's ways to preserve terpenes with, using solvents. Some people have a different process. If you heating your solvent, stuff too high, you're going to lose a lot of terpenes. The nice thing with water hash is we are keeping, everything really, really cold. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why we excel over a lot of other, bubble hash that you've seen on the market and things like that. Well, in reality, a lot of the bubble hash that we were seeing, growing up came from Northern California. Some of the biggest outdoor farms were in California, and it's hot in California, and a lot of people weren't taking into account these variables that we're taking into account today, especially in the lab situation that we're able to, process in. We're able to control a lot of those variables. So the fact that, 100% of our process is a cold process compared to a lot of the other solvent processes where you're actually heating the product to remove the solvent. You're also removing a lot of the terpenoids. So I think that's why, our process specifically, especially compared to solvent processes, but also compared to, other water hash processes, we're able to retain a lot more of the terpenoids because we're controlling our environment from the processing of our product, but also to the drying of our product. Those environments are 100% controlled from humidity to temperature. And I think that's really, one of the reasons why we've excelled. But there's also a lot of other methods that we've kind of taken on and honed in for our process that have been able to retain a lot more of the terpenoids. Starting from how we break up our product. We use a stainless steel sieve, and we immediately break up 100% of the product to exposed surface area, which basically removes water faster than, I've seen other processes in the past. And by removing the water fast as possible, it's not taking in, any other things from the environment. Basically, if we leave water in the product, water acts as gravity, especially, here in Colorado where everything's dry. Mm-hmm. So it's going to pull in a lot of other things, yeah. It's going to pull in dust from your environment if it's wet, and all these things. So if we remove the water as fast as possible, our theory is that we're able to retain a lot more of the terpenoid profile.
Which are very medicinal, and we're going to be learning more and more about that
Yes, please do more terpenoid tests because I wanna see some terpenoid tests for my product compared to others, and
Absolutely.
I haven't seen that yet from
Yeah.
my product.
You haven't? You haven't
I
got
haven't
any
seen
tests
any
in California?
terpenoid tests. No,
Really?
no.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I'm so curious to start doing that test and comparing it to, solvents and stuff like that. So why have you not switched to solvent?
It's not really about switching because there may become a place where I need a solvent extract as part of my line. I'm not negating that yet. But the main reason that I've really stuck with branding essential extracts, especially as producing solventless processes, is because it's what I prefer personally.
Right.
And not to be greedy or anything, but a lot of the elder clientele prefer it as well.
Sure.
So it's not just me that prefers it. But in reality, it's how I prefer to consume my medicine as well. I'm not a big dab head. I'll take dabs, especially if a friend of mine has something that they're really proud of, and if it's clean, I'll definitely take a dab here and there. But in reality, I prefer eating it, and I prefer smoking it, and smoking it via a spliff. And solvent products in a spliff just don't do it for me. It's not the same flavor profile. It doesn't burn the same way. There's something about the thickness of smoke from water hash that I really prefer in a spliff.
Very interesting.
How is the yield comparatively? Can you, match the yield of a solvent or
I
get
think
close?
generally the yield of solvents is going to be a little bit higher. That's the one downside to our process. Our yields range. It really depends on the product that's given to us. And we've hit very similar yields as BHO, on certain products. We've got a few clients that give half their product to one of my good friends and, that does a solvent process, and then half the product to us. And I'm always comparing notes with my homie,
Sure.
and we're hitting really, really similar numbers. I'd say generally speaking, we range from 5 to 15%, but some of our clients, the Farm in Boulder, Pink House, Herbal Cure, I've hit up to, numbers of 20 to 25%
Wow.
yields with some of those clients. So, it really depends on the starting material. Generally speaking, if I'm given the same exact material as a solvent client, they will tend to get, a few percentages higher yield than us. And, I guess the other downside is with solvents, you're getting a yield of one grade. With our process, we actually have, anywhere from, 2 different grades to 5 different grades and sometimes more. And so some of those grades can be extremely high, and some of them can be a little bit lower quality. And so that's also where kind of the yield comes into play, especially for a dispensary, because I understand, I understand from a business perspective, from the dispensary side of things, when we give them back, a little bit less of a yield than their solvent, and then we're also giving it in, 3 or 4 different grades. It's tougher to deal with as a dispensary, but what we're really priding ourselves on is quality, and yield is not what we're concerned with. We want the cleanest product possible. So when we come back with a little bit lower percentage than the solvent guys, my argument is, well, which one tasted cleaner to you?
That's
Well,
right.
We always found, that about 3 grades is what people can handle. Like anything more than that, you're asking them to comprehend too much. But to have, high, medium, and low worked well with people. And if you have that price differential.
Definitely. And even though sometimes we'll have 5 different grades, we'll keep it to, most of my clients anyways, and I try and push this, we'll keep it to having 3 price tiers or less,
Right.
2 to 3 price tiers, that top shelf, the middle, and the
You will
the lower.
always have the top shelf people, though. You will. Like, everyone is super worried about things, and I understand, but you will always have the people that will never drink Coors Light, Bud Light. They will always drink,
That's what I'm
90
counting on
shilling.
is, like the
Absolutely.
bourbon market
Always.
type
You
of
bet.
thing,
You
is
bet.
we're really just focused on that, high quality, the consumer that cares about what they're consuming.
Right. And you can't keep it on the shelf, so that should just prove that you're, I love, one of the great things about you, Nick, is that you never settle and you never cut corners. And that's something that a lot of people can't say because they've caved to demand and stuff. Now, again, you don't own a dispensary and everything, but still, at the end of the day, you're keeping it high quality, which is Awesome.
Especially with the amount of marketing I've done and the fact that I've put myself on the front line, I don't want to stand for anything else but quality. If I stood for something lower quality than what I'm standing for, it would not put me in the position I'm in today, and I'm all about it for myself, but I'm all about it for the people that are consuming it. I'm consuming it myself, so it's key for me.
Well, and I think you've hit on something with the older generation too, so let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Tired of dispensary hopping? Trying to find quality meds? Look no further and get to know Greenworks. Our shops are stocked with over 20 strains of organically grown meds, including R4, the highest tested CBD strain in Colorado. Yes, we back up our quality with testing. While Greenworks offers only the highest quality meds, we don't believe in high prices, with eighths ranging from $20 to $40 and ounces capped at $175. With 2 centers in Denver and 1 in Glenwood Springs, we're likely closer than you think. Call 303-647-5210 to find the location nearest you.
The chocolatiers at Incredibles are dedicated to crafting the finest chocolate from high-quality ingredients to ensure the greatest possible medicated edibles in the world. Consistency and quality are top priority. Lab testing on each and every batch. Rick and Josh have been making non-medicated chocolates for years for such retail outlets as Whole Foods and Vitamin Cottage. Today, we are focused on crafting our award-winning medicated incredible chocolate bars. We are professional bakers, and we believe food should be made from scratch. We guarantee your satisfaction. Have an incredible day.
Cannapunch is a delicious and effective medical marijuana beverage proudly made right here in Colorado. Each bottle is freshly infused with 100% pure flower extract from the highest grade marijuana plants available today. Using proprietary extraction methods, every bottle of Cannapunch is consistently and reliably infused with an exact milligram dosage that you can count on to relieve your symptoms each and every time. Cannapunch is delicious. There's never any medicine-y taste. We use only 100% cannabis flowers. No trim or byproducts are ever used in Cannapunch. It does not require refrigeration and comes in convenient, resealable multi-dose bottles from 60 milligrams to 200 milligrams. We have drinks with dosage that works best for you. Cannapunch is available in a variety of delicious flavors like black cherry, watermelon, pineapple mango, and blue raspberry. And we now have strain-specific beverages available just for you. Cannapunch is delicious, convenient, consistent, and effective. Give it a try and experience the Cannapunch difference.
All right, and we're back. So yeah, I am curious because obviously the older generations, and I'm speaking of the baby boomers, which are my parents, and then the older. So our parents really, I guess there was hash. It was
Hash has been around since
Well,
cannabis
right.
has been around.
Well, right, but I mean it was.
That's actually what we're working on now. We've really built a name for ourselves as creating a product that's, dabbable and all this stuff, that's in a more of a granulated form that appears very similarly to butane earwax, thus the title solventless wax. But now we're really trying to expand to, even more of a clientele by pressing a lot of our hash.
Really?
So we're working on pressing hash. I've always made pucks. I've always made pucks of hash, and they've always been on our shelves, since I've started it in Colorado. But generally, I've pressed kind of the lower grades of stuff,
Right.
And now I'm actually starting to do a little bit more of pressing the higher grades of products. We're making a product called Temple Balls. We're calling them the Essential Temple Balls, and it's more of a product that was used, in Nepal and India and Morocco and things of that nature. And it's a certain method of pressing the hash that is, I think, going to be geared towards a little bit more of the older clientele, not because they're older, but because it's what they were used to growing
That's
up.
what I'm talking about. Yeah, and why did they press it for transport?
A lot of the reason that, hash was pressed back in the day was for transport. It's easier to transport. You're not going to lose little bits of granulars when it's all pressed in one brick. But also, there's other methods or other reasons for pressing hash. There's the decarboxylation method, which, you as a lab would, love this because not only am I pressing the hash, but I'm heating it at the same time as I'm pressing it. So generally, our solventless wax is in raw form, ready to be smoked. But our pressed hash is actually, it can be smoked, but it also can be eaten because we're decarbing it at the same time as we're pressing it. So that's another benefit to pressing hash, is the decarboxylation factor. And then, it's transport, it's the decarboxylation for not only eating it but also for getting different cannabinoids out of it. I don't know if you're familiar, but if we're able to age and heat press a product, we're able to actually turn more of that THC and degrade it to get you a different effect. And sometimes people are saying that degrading THC into CBN and things like that aren't necessarily the best things, but oftentimes what we're noticing is it's going to give you more of a body relaxation high.
Right.
If
That's
we
what I've heard, actually.
age and press.
When you say
the hash.
age, how long are you talking about? And is that like leaving it to open air or in a tight
No,
dark
it's,
container?
there's different ways to do it, but what we're working on right now, and I'm working with an amazing person right now, actually a few amazing people from all over the U.S., but one of the guys that just recently moved here to Colorado, a man by the name of Canna Hash, he's been all over the world learning different methods of pressing hash from his father even. He grew up pressing hash because his father taught him. And I'm not going to talk too much more about him. I'll let him come on one of these days. But he's been teaching me a lot lately about different methods of pressing, from, Moroccan methods to Nepalese methods to his method, at home in Russia. And, so just doing all these different methods are creating, different ways to make a hash that's going to be pressed tight enough to actually save for 5 years. Like we were going to be pressing certain things a different way if we want them to have a longevity, have a longer shelf life. And then we'll press them softer if we want them to be smoked within the next week and a half.
Coming
That
to a
is so
retail
cool.
store near you, aged hash.
Definitely.
Seriously,
I've got some stuff that's been aging for 5 months in the lab.
Wow.
And under, temperature and humidity control so that there's no possibility of any mold or mildew. We're not adding any moisture to the product. We're really just adding heat and pressure.
Are you getting flavor enhancement or degradation?
It's a different type of flavor. Some, I think, fields of thought would say that it's enhancing the flavor, and some would say that it's degrading it. Me personally, it's just different. The flavor that we're able to retain in the beginning, with our solventless wax method, I think really grabs more of the actual flower notes, whereas some of the aging and pressing of the hash is getting more of like, sometimes it can actually come out stronger in smell, but different, more of an aged hash smell. So it's smelling more hashy rather than more like the flowers that came from, and some of the clientele prefers that. Some of the clientele are like, oh, we want it to taste like the flower that it came from, and I like both. I literally have been switching it up every night. And, for the last, I'd say 5-6 years of my life, I haven't been smoking a lot of hash. I've been on this huge flower kick because before that, 10 years ago, I smoked just hash and tobacco, 15, 20 spliffs of just hash and tobacco a day. And it got to be a little bit much. So, for the last 5 or so years, I've been smoking, flowers and only really smoking hash at night. But literally in the last 3 months, with all these hash makers coming into my life, with all this new influence of different ways to press it, I've been smoking a lot more hash.
So what do you say to those people that say that people that smoke are lazy and don't get things done? What do you say to that?
I think, it's hard to say something to directly because I think some people are lazy and don't get shit done when they smoke weed. I think my receptor sites are just firing correctly or something. I need weed to do all these things to function properly, basically. But I definitely don't really have the lazy issue too much. I just charge. I charge hard, but I get depressed when I'm not doing work. I get low when I'm not doing everything and trying to take on everything.
But different hashes and different flowers have different effects. So there's
definitely,
that's what people
that's
keep
the other
telling
thing.
me.
For me,
There's clean
I
hash
actually,
and hash.
about 6 years ago, or maybe longer now, but really 6 years ago is when I really started strictly smoking OG. And I smoke OG Kush. I really don't smoke too many other strains. Every once in a while, I'll try something new. But in reality, OG for me is what helps me function. It provides enough strength to plug into the receptor sites and help my pain. But it's also clear-headed enough for me to function on a day-to-day basis. And so I think in reality, I've just had a lot of experience with so many strains. I've been able to narrow it down to that one that works for me. And I think with all this advent of all the new, methods of smoking it and consuming it, is going to bring in also. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought a little bit. But it's making it more prevalent. So it's showing people, I don't know where I was going.
Well, yeah, the different kinds. And I mean, I found the same thing too. Like when I first started smoking hash, I always wanted to keep up with the boys. And I learned pretty fast that it's all about moderation and finding that sweet spot and what works for you.
Yeah, sorry. So that's what I was going to say. You know, maybe OG Kush is going to be too strong for some of my friends, and, you know, something more like Haze is going to be perfect for what they need to function on a day-to-day basis. You know, but in reality, you know, the OG Kush is perfect for me, you know, and I found that.
And, you know, it's very interesting, and people keep telling me that, but I am definitely not smoke and go out and do a whole bunch of things. Like that, I don't care what people put in front of me. I still feel, and maybe it's because I've just pushed the psychological envelope so far that it's just like, I already know that I'm going to be tired, and I already know I'm going to be hungry. Like, it doesn't matter. So, but I know.
That's why we need CBDV and
and THCV.
Or that's what I mean.
THCV, appetite suppressant. But, yeah, I can't wait for somebody to come out with a product like that. But
that's the moderation issue too. If you're smoking too much, you're going to get tired, no matter what it is. I think I do, but small doses.
I don't know though, because I mean, I smoke I don't smoke during the day really at all anymore. I'm just too busy throughout the day. But when I get home at night, I mean, sometimes spliffs will keep me up. You know, it really depends.
That's
you know,
so
and
crazy.
it depends on the strain too. Because I mean, actually, last night is a perfect example. I think I got home at maybe like 12:30, 1 in the morning, and I rolled up my first spliff. You know, smoked a spliff. It was done. I was like, okay, I'm still awake. Need another one. Rolled up another one. I think I was smoking spliffs until like 4 or 5 in the morning last night.
Was that OG?
And I was working. Yeah, it was OG. I was working, so you know, I needed to stay up, but I wasn't getting tired.
How about mixes? Are you doing many mixes of different strains, and are you doing it at the beginning of the process or mixing together at the end because of the different trichome shapes?
You know, we do it at the beginning because basically we can't do it at the end because in reality every strain is going to have a different appearance. So like literally, like even if it's a 70 micron from one strain, even if it's a Kush strain, you know, I'm running a Bubba Kush and an OG Kush. Both the 70 microns, and I mean the plants were probably grown differently as well, especially because they were different strains, but they're going to be different colors, different consistencies. So we don't want to combine those because we're really looking for like a consistent color across the board and a consistent melt as well. We don't want one piece to barely melt and one piece to completely melt. So we really try and keep that consistency.
it is just amazing to me that there's so much involved because I've never made hash. I have no idea how to even go about it.
But we do combine things in the beginning, you know, especially we call them artistic blends because we'll have a strain from a certain client that we've run, 50 times, and running that strain alone will always produce a certain quality of product. It'll be, say for an example, we have a client that gives us a Blue Dream. We'll just use that same example. They give us a Blue Dream. When we run that Blue Dream, the product is always, there's just not any oils that we're able to retain in that Blue Dream. However, the smell of the Blue Dream is ridiculous. It's like one of the most stronger smelling strains that we're able to extract from. So we want to keep that really, really strong fruity aroma in the material, but we need some oils to make that product sell, or to make it melt better so that the clientele that likes to dab wants to buy that product more and things like that. So we'll blend it with something like a Bubba Kush, and we'll call it Blue Bubba or something like that, because the Bubba Kush does have more of that oily consistency. But in reality, when I run the Bubba Kush alone, sometimes it's so oily that it's harder to break up properly, especially with certain clients. And that's a perfect reason to blend, the Blue Dream with the Bubba Kush, and we call that the artistic blend because the product that we're going to get out of it is the best of both worlds. We're still able to get the strong terpenoid profile from the Blue Dream, and we're able to make the Blue Dream oily. And one of the other things I like mixing, is our NYC diesel cut. We have an NYC diesel cut that we grow with Pink House. And that thing has so many oils, I love that strain. So if I want to make anything oily and smell like lemons, I'll mix a little bit of that NYC diesel in. So I'll make the Bubba a lemon Bubba, or I'll make our OG a lemon OG by throwing that NYC in, because it's just overpowering with these lemon terpenoid profiles, and the oil content is amazing.
Are you trying to stay to like one flavor like lemon, or will you mix like lemon and berry?
Yeah, and we've got certain blends we call tropical blends where we'll mix like our Bruce Banner, which is a strawberry diesel cross, and we'll mix that with banana kush and also things like that, so strawberry, banana, and maybe some mangoes, or our pineapple express or pineapple
Morning
OG. So we call that, the tropical blend, and things of that nature.
Can you go back and explain what 70 micron?
Yeah,
means?
to go over the microns, basically micron is a unit of measurement, and it's a unit of measurement that it's extremely small. So basically, in describing microns, we're actually describing the actual size of the trichome head, because the bags that we use have this mesh material at the bottom of the bag where we collect the different trichomes, and all that mesh is separated by size. So we've got 70 micron mesh, we've got 120 micron mesh above that, 220 above that, 38 below the 70, 25 below that. And it's really, when we say micron's a unit of measurement, and it's really to describe the size of the trichome head. All trichomes, depending on the strain, depending on the medium used, depending on whether it was outdoor or indoor, are going to change in size. And so that's a variable that we take into account during our process, and so we'll use different micron screens for different materials. In reality, things like that Bubba Kush have these huge trichome heads, so we'll run a lot more of the 70, 120, 160, 190, things like that, because we're going to be collecting a lot more of the bigger, trichomes. And then, things like Blue Dream have the smaller trichomes, so we'll run the 38 and the 25 bag, a lot more often than the larger micron bags.
All right, and we'll take a break and we'll be right back.
Indispensary in Colorado Springs is proud to support Overgrow the Radio. With 2 locations in Colorado Springs, Indispensary invites you to discover what true selection and values feel like. Always featuring an incredible array of Stanley Brothers medicine as well as full line of edible and infused products. Indispensary is open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days a week, 364 days a year. You owe it to your health and well-being to discover Indispensary. West Side location at 3044 West Colorado and East Side location at 3031 East Platte in Colorado Springs. Indispensary is your destination for indispensable quality medicine. iVita Wellness is committed to compassionate patient care while providing the highest quality medicine at an affordable price. At iVita Wellness, patients can get top shelf ounces for $150 every day. iVita Wellness also carries pharmaceutical grade pure CO2 oil. iVita Wellness is located in Uptown Denver on 1616 Pearl Street. Open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can reach us at 303-952-9150 or our website at www.ivitawellness.com. iVita Wellness is Denver's Compassionate Care Center.
This segment was brought to you by The Farm, a medical marijuana care center located at 2801 Iris Street in Boulder. The Farm carries premium cannabis, edibles, and Hummingbird brand products. Visit our new cannabis lifestyle store for your local artesian glass, vaporizers, and hemp clothing. The Farm has been serving Boulder since 2009. Isn't it time you come and see what we have to offer?
Green Faith Ministry is for spiritual guidance, MMJ information, and networking combined with compassionate care on the way to enlightenment with all Green Faith sacraments. Green Faith provides charity assistance, including medical and food throughout the year. Contact them at greenfaithministry.com.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
Wow, I don't even need to. That is so loud right now.
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, can you turn it down? Oh my God, that's awful.
So, do you make your own bags then, or have you developed?
We did. For 2 years or so, with the help of Dave Guzman from the Trim Shop, I designed my own bags. We ran into a little bit of an issue, though, because I designed the bags and my homie produced them, and he just recently stopped producing them. So right now I'm kind of looking for a little bit of an investor or something of that nature to start the bags up again. But right now we're 100% sold out and discontinued on the essential bags. And it's kind of sad because the whole reason I put them out, number one, was because I was tired of ordering all my bags from across seas. I wanted them in-house. But also, it's sad because I taught so many patients that these are the bags they should be using, to produce this high quality product. And not to say that Bubble Man's bags aren't high quality or Mila's bags aren't high quality, but in reality, yeah, we designed our bags. I designed my bags for our process. And so I've been, promoting that for the last couple of years as, these are amazing bags and this will get the quality that you're looking for. And it's tough now because I'm literally getting 15 to 20 emails every single day of patients and people in other states wanting to purchase the bags. And we just recently had to remove them from the website because we are sold out.
Can you pre-order so you could get the capital for that? Or is it just...
I just don't know if there's enough clientele to make that work. In reality, I'm looking at trying to raise $50,000 to make another order of these bags, and that's a lot of money, and that's a lot of people pre-ordering to make it happen. And I just don't want to hold people on the line for that long.
Yeah, true. Okay, so the one downfall that is spoken to about water hash or whatever is the mold problem. So can you talk about why that is into play more than with solvent?
I've, especially when we first started producing here in Colorado, I was seeing all kinds of other products on other clients' shelves, especially clients that I was trying to get to come to us. It was easy to take over clients, especially in the beginning, because I could just look at their shelf and be like, hey, you might want to take that moldy product off your shelf.
Wow, really?
We saw it a lot. Especially, with the huge onset of the medical cannabis industry. Everyone and their mom was trying to get into our industry in the beginning 5 years ago. So we saw, back home growers and hash makers trying to do it and put products on the shelf. And so, I saw a lot of mold then. In reality, I haven't seen too much moldy products because I've been really, really pushing, the precautions that you need to take into account when processing with water and ice. And it's not just me. A lot of people are pushing that in our industry, and I really haven't seen too many moldy products. The way in which we know for a fact that we won't have any moldy products on the shelf is we, like I was mentioning earlier, we use a sieve. We completely break down the product immediately to expose as much surface area, and then our product dries anywhere from 7 days to 3 weeks, sometimes longer on our whole plant runs in a completely temperature, humidity controlled environment that has, that's sterile, that has no options for mold. And so we won't put anything on a shelf. We won't put anything in an enclosed container until it's 100% dry. And really, if you focus on that, if you're not trying to, produce a product that still contains water in it to try and retain, oils and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of people leaving water in it because it looked more oily and stuff like that. But, if you hone in the process like we have and, you have your drying, days down and everything, there's no real chance of any mold to be there because we are giving it 100% dry time. It's not getting into an enclosed container before then.
Now, do you, oh my God, now I lost my train of thought, for God's sakes.
You need more OG.
Oh, I know what yeah, right. I'd be passed out slobbering right now. I know what I was going to ask you. So do you teach people how to do this? Do you bring people into your lab?
Yes, and
You do?
I have been for 10 years. We have, forums online that teach people every single day. I've got, an 8-page spread in the High Times magazine from January that really goes over our process from start to finish. Every single day I'm answering questions on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, according to our process, or as far as our process. And I was even offering consulting in the state of Colorado to clients, for years and years and years. In fact, a lot of the edible companies in Colorado have learned from me, Right now, I'm in a position where it got more and more difficult because I started teaching more and more people in the state of Colorado, and it was taking a lot of my clients. And in reality, my clients is what, pays the bills right now. And so we were just losing a little bit too much clients. So right now we're holding off a little bit on the consulting. We're probably working with a select few people in the state of Colorado as far as consulting is concerned. I'm still definitely open to consulting in other states. In fact, we're hopefully going to be working with some networks of consultants very soon to help us expand into other states and help other states produce the quality that we're producing here in Colorado since we have the experience.
But I would think that you have such great IP, clearly, because no one makes it like you do. And I don't know who you taught, but I've never seen anything that even looks close to essential extracts. But why wouldn't you just take your own IP to other states instead of teaching other people how to do it? Because there's only one of you.
It's hard because, also taking, our, process and our method and, the business, that we've created to other states, it also, leaves a little bit of openness for error, like maybe I didn't train those specific consultants as well as I've trained, my guys here in state. And it's scary because I'm really about upholding quality. That's my first objective. So we are working on it. We're working on doing both, not only teaching other states, but also expanding to other states. It's definitely in the works.
Have you had essential extracts?
Yes.
You have?
I have.
Did you sell them at CDS?
No, we were actually one of his consulting clients at one point. But we were in it so early, it was really hard to make the economics of hash work. And so, we were...
The economics of hash are still very hard to make work, because
we
in
never
reality,
made it
you
work,
have to
quite
know
frankly.
that it's about quality. It's about quality for the patients, otherwise
Let's
it won't
talk
work.
about that right now, because there probably are patients listening going, God, hash is so expensive. So what are those? Why is it so hard? Well, besides the fact that the price
one of
just
the
dropped
biggest
down.
things for us is, the water hash process, our solventless process compared to a solvent process. For us to make, a similar amount of product is our runs are 6 hours. And that's 1 to 2 people manpower for 6 hours. And not only that, but, we have a dry time as well. So 2 weeks later, somebody else has to come into the lab and do the packaging, and things of that nature. So in reality, our process takes 2 weeks, from start to finish. And it's a lot of work. It's manual labor, but it's not only manual labor, it's artistic manual labor. So it's not just sending some knuckleheads into the lab to do manual labor. It's thinking with every single process you're doing. I've taught my guys to take into account every variable. When they look at the trim, they smell the trim and they see it, they should know how to run it. And each step is different. If they run their second run and they're getting a certain amount of yield, their third run may be a little bit longer in time, or it may be a little bit shorter. There's so many variables in the water hash process. It just takes a lot of thought and energy. So I pay my guys really well. So, as far as on my end of things, my guys are getting paid for the work that they're doing because they're doing amazing work. We're taking into account a lot more variables. Our overhead is a lot higher, and our process takes longer. So, there are some numbers that go into that.
So BHO, literally, isn't it like an hour and a half from...
And
start
people have
to
different
package?
processes. There's people that don't use any heat whatsoever, and their process is, 24 hours of purging at least, and things of that nature. There's people that heat purge, and they're done after blasting and heat purging in an hour and a half, and then we're seeing, all these enclosed units come on the market, and I'm hearing quotes from a lot of manufacturers of enclosed units that you can process 5 kilos in a matter of an hour and 20 minutes, and things like that. So, a lot of these closed units are focusing on the timely matter of the solvent process as well, and yield and things of that nature. And in reality, we're not going to stop focusing on the quality. We're not going to make our process shorter to produce less quality. We're going to keep it at the same process because it's what I believe in.
But I only see it getting better. I mean, when you're a startup and you're struggling and every penny out the door is payroll, or and you can't even afford to, and I think we're getting past that. I mean, we'll see what 64 brings, but people are getting really stable now and saying, okay, I can afford to carry things that aren't the highest margin in order to have that quality, because when you're not...
Definitely. And clients are also realizing that it may not bring them in the most money, our product specifically, but you know what? It's going to bring them in 15 to 20 new patients every single day that are going to spend money on other things, that spend more money. So, in reality, and, that's another thing I wanted to focus on is, our product, we're focused on extreme quality in the product, but I've also focused on a lot of marketing our product because of these certain factors, the fact that we don't yield as much and things like that. The more we market water hash as being a cleanlier product, and being,
terpenes, terpenes, flavor.
being known for having the terpenoid profile and not having any chemical solvents. There's going to be people that are going to be looking for that specifically.
Well, specifically more and more lately, because people really don't understand that solvents are getting left in hash, a lot of hash, and a lot of hash is dirty. And the more that the more residual solvent tests that CAM labs and other labs do, the more data we have, the more people will be stepping away from that. What's the pricing like? What does your pricing look like compared to some other? Like, what's the highest gram sold? I mean, is it still CO2? Or is it not
I'm not
anymore?
totally sure. And it really depends on the actual shop that's selling it. There's some Boulder dispensaries that sell all of their concentrates, a lot higher than most of our Denver dispensaries, And then there's places, in Colorado Springs. I have one client in Colorado Springs. He charges a little bit higher, than some of our other clients, but to be completely honest, the starting material that he's giving us is amazing, is way better than a lot of our other clients. So the fact that he's charging a little bit more for it is understandable. And he can't keep it on his shelf either. So there's a huge range. For our solventless products, I personally like to keep them around, the $30 range for the highest grade. But then, there's some, per gram. But then there's some, clients of ours that can't keep it on the shelf, and they have to charge $50 a gram to keep it on the shelf. And, my perspective, I'm not 100% for that. I'd rather, help the patients, but at the same time, we can't help all the patients if we, keep the price super low. And in reality, that's my main goal, is to help as many patients as we can. And the patients will tell us what the price should be, basically, as far as what, it's being bought for. And that price is different at every dispensary. I've got, a different structure at each dispensary, and I'm not the one who creates that structure. I give a suggested wholesale price and a suggested resale price, and the dispensary goes off of that from what their clientele needs.
Mm-hmm. And it totally depends on where and competition and all of that kind of stuff. But so about $30, huh? How much was it at the beginning?
But do contact me, contact me if you are a center, that's interested in us processing, because our processing prices are really, really cheap right now. We're just trying to provide as many patients as possible. They can contact me at essentialextracts@gmail.com. You can also take a look at our website at www.essentialextracts.co, CO for Colorado, or you can also take a look at some of our products on Facebook, Select Nikka T on Facebook, Instagram, Nikka_T, Twitter, Extract Artist.
What are some of the dispensaries you're in?
Some of the main dispensaries, I'll start with Boulder. Some of the main dispensaries we are currently in Boulder are The Farm and Greenest Green. Much love and big up to The Farm for supplying us with a lot of material. Much love to Brad at Greenest Green for getting me some amazing material as well. And then, sometimes we work with other centers in Boulder, but right now those are the two main ones that are consistently providing us with trim. And I do everything legal to the T. So if a center isn't providing essential extracts, the trim, we're not processing it right now. And so in reality, I apologize to a lot of the patients that aren't able to see, enough of the product. They want, to buy ounces at a time and things like that. It's difficult for us because we are working under these regulations in Colorado, and we are only processing for centers that give us material.
Have you seen anyone try to steal your name and put it on?
Every single day. If I wanted to be the asshole that I'm trying to avoid being, I would send out literally 1,000 letters every single day from my attorney. But
literally putting essential extracts on packages.
Whether it's essential extracts or solventless wax, we've trademarked those terms for our process and for our product here in Colorado. Not because I'm trying to be a controlling asshole, but because this is a real legal business, and I had to do this.
Absolutely. Well, why not coin it though? I mean, it is your term. Okay, what about some dispensaries? We've got
we went into Boulder. In Denver, my home, as always mentioned, is Pink House Blooms. We've got 5 locations: Pink House Cherry, Pink House Mile High, Pink House Riverside. We've teamed up with Verde on Colfax, so they carry our products as well. Pink House Pearl, yep. And then we also work very closely with the Herbal Cure in Denver.
I've never been there.
I'd work like to meet with that guy. I mean, there's a lot of them, and some clients, give us, a bunch of trim right in the beginning, and then they won't call us for a few months because they don't have their harvest ready. We've worked with VIP, we've worked with Light Shade Labs, which is the new company underneath
Heartland Pharmacy.
We have our product.
River Rock?
I'm spacing a little bit right now. No, we do not work with River Rock right now.
Okay.
We do not have any products at River Rock.
How about
a few others that I'm just not really thinking. Medicine Man is one of our biggest clients right now.
Medicine Man, Andy.
Kind Pain Management in Lakewood just gave us a bunch of amazing product. We're going to be putting some stuff on their shelves real soon here.
And then why don't you give a shout out to whoever was in Colorado Springs?
Yeah, definitely. Big shout out to Joey Stein in Colorado Springs.
Joey Stein.
With Natural Mystic Caregivers. He's actually the provider of the Cannabis Cup winning trim. So we won this year for our Flow G.
Oh, was that his?
Yep, that was Joey's.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about that real quick, and then we got to go. So you won.
Yeah, we won for our Flow G solventless wax, and in reality, it's kind of cool because it's just the normal trim. It wasn't like whole plant run or anything like that. Just the normal trim, a little bit of larf, of course, that Joey gives us every couple of weeks. Joey's just a super genuine dude. He deserves everything he gets in this industry. He grows amazingly. It's some of our favorite product to extract, and he deserves that win just like we do.
Well, that's awesome. Shout out to you, Joey Stein. All right. Well, let us give farewell now, but tell us again how they can contact you, Nick.
Yeah. Once again, thank you guys so much for having me on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We learned a lot.
Yeah.
But you can contact me via email, essentialextracts@gmail.com. You can also take a look at our website, www.essentialextracts.co. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can Google Nikka T. I'm sure you'll be able to find me. I'm out there.
That is for sure. And he also DJs. Where do you DJ at if somebody wants to?
Yeah, every first Friday, give thanks for this plug, but every first Friday we're at the Hood Lab for our Higher Heights event, sponsored by New Age Medical and the Incredibles Edibles.
Yum. They're one of my sponsors for the show. Love them.
Big up them.
Yes.
And then we are also every third Friday we are at the Funky Buddha, and this is a show that we've been doing every month for over 2 years now, and the place has been getting crazy for the last year. Fully sold out show, even though it's a free show actually. In fact, all of our shows that we're trying to do in the reggae industry are free as far as the monthlies are concerned, but Funky Buddha for massive reggae every third Friday of the month. And then actually we have an amazing show this Friday at the Gypsy House with a guest DJ from my home, Oakland, California. We've got Relic Secure with Secure Them Sound flying all the way out here to play with us at the Roots Dance at Gypsy House this Friday.
Very cool. Well, if you haven't seen Select Nikka T and you love reggae, you got to go out and see one of those shows. And if you haven't had any essential extracts, amazing solventless wax, you definitely have to grab some of that.
I also won't DJ a show unless they let me smoke weed there. So every show that I play, you can smoke weed. For real.
All right. And we'll be back next week. Thanks so much.